I'm studying at the number one business school in Asia right now, and yesterday we had this cheer day almost, where we were all in this auditorium, and the windows were closed, the curtains were down, and we were singing cheering these chants of pride, justice, freedom, liberation. All of these things that, we as humans used to fight for. We don't fight for them anymore now, but we were singing these songs together, side by side, and the room was really musty, it was dry, it was humid, there was no ventilation. And it was only getting hotter as the songs went on and on. We were there for an hour, and everybody was sweating. It was one of those things where you wanted the community really bad, but you also didn't want to spread your sweat on somebody else. So you would try to like touch them, but as little as possible so that you wouldn't put your sweat on them. And I realized that we really used to fight for freedom. That's the reason we have this privilege of of relaxing. But we've just we fought against the systems that entrapped us just to pretend that there were no systems. They were simply replaced. This corporate life, we're groomed after university. And I have to say that university really is just this beautiful thing, really novel. It's absolutely special. You get a bunch of students together and you say, okay, let's be curious, let's learn together. Let's extend our brain's capacity. Let's invite knowledge into this world that can make us better as a community. What's instead happening for most schools is they've become businesses, and they groom the students so that they can be the best products in the assembly line, so that when they go out into the world, they can provide value as much as they can to shareholders and not to the real value of this world. So we've gotten to a point where we're essentially free. Physically, we're free. We can go and we can do whatever we want. But that's not real. Nobody goes out and does what they want. Very few people do. And if you're in self-improvement or you're leveling up in some way, you want to break free, you're really being selfish, right? Because there are two kinds of people in this world right now with respect to these systems. And by these systems, I mean corporate entrapment. Our personalities and communities are defined by algorithms, and also just not having any joy or passion or fulfillment in life. We don't go out, we don't feel joy very often. And it's because we have been cut down so hard that we confuse joy for temporary relaxation. Joy should be in every moment. So if we go back to the two kinds of people with respect to the systems that were just outlined, one is the people who are complacent, or maybe they never stop to think, maybe this isn't for me. And what happens with them is usually they're very successful. They go out into the workforce. A lot of these people are usually very intelligent. They go out into the workforce. They work for someone else's agenda, of course, and they don't like what they're doing at all. But because they're able to support themselves, they see it as a means to an end. Spending half your life working, that's just the way it is, right? The Truman Show. We accept the reality of the world in which we were presented, or the world in which we were given. And then a lot of them, they go out and find love, and it's this breath of fresh air. It's the first time they've ever felt something that's true to their soul. And we're told that that's natural. That's just what love is, right? It's different from work. Work isn't never meant to feel good, but love is. When in reality, love is meant to be in everything we do, and only an extension of that when we meet our partner, our soulmate. What ends up happening, and this is only backed by divorce rates going up, this is no coincidence, is that when they find their partner, they expect everything onto it, because now love only exists as is in this partner, as is in their family, and not in work. So this is their escape. And when you have an escape, when you find that little taste, of course you're going to put everything on it. But the work wears you down to where you were before you had any fulfillment. And it beats you, and it beats you, and it beats you really hard. And what ends up happening for these people is they just project it on to their lovers and their family. The second kind of people, they see what the system is. Somebody's gone out and told them, hey, listen, this isn't what we're meant to be doing as humans. And they break free somehow. They find financial freedom. They do what they like. A lot of these people, They actually go through the system. They're doctors, but they really like what they're doing. That's a great example of a good use case of going to school and then making a difference on their life, onto someone else's life, or some other people. They like educating others. A great example of this, if they got paid more, is elementary and kindergarten teachers. These are some of the nicest people you'll meet, and they 100% deserve to be rewarded more. Another example you'll see is people in the self-improvement space. They see it as the matrix, and then they break free and they find financial freedom helping others, or freelancing, or something along those lines. Nobody talks about, though, because everybody in that second space that breaks free sees what the system is. It's corrupt. It's nonsense. No human should have to go through this. And so all they do is take themselves out. They're like, you know what? I'm not going to participate in this. But they put the mission, they put the agenda, they force our future kids to have to go through that system. And I don't think that should be the case anymore. I think that we know better, and we should break the system down. Somehow. Listen, I don't know what we would be able to do, but I genuinely believe that Gen Z can break the system down and make a better world for future generations, our children. We're not meant to be living like this, and we can make a difference. The problem, if we take LinkedIn, for example, which is filled with a bunch of meat riders, meat suckers, and kiss butts, essentially, is that everybody is worried about oneself. You can backlash against these people on LinkedIn, on Twitter, but you can't go out and reply on LinkedIn unless you've already established a name. And very few people do that. They just remove themselves from the situation, or if they see something, they make fun of it in their head and they exit. But that still exists, that these people who are posting these senseless, soulless posts on LinkedIn are profiting, and they're being incentivized, as well as future individuals are being incentivized to post like that if they want to make more money or if they want to level up. I think as a community, if we can rise up and say, this is stupid, right? Because at a certain point, and this is just a fact, this is the way of life, Generation Z will be the oldest. So if we can set a precedent now, before we get into power, to just get rid of this system, then we can foster a greater community for our descendants. And that really is the number one important thing, right? Getting free is nice and making money, but the reason we do all these things is to support those below us, just from an evolutionary standpoint. So I wouldn't know exactly the method to do this, but if we can build a community, then we have the power in numbers. We have the courage to rise up, and we have the courage to say, this is stupid. We should not be doing this anymore, right? Because all these corporations, all they do is follow the money. If we change the game, they would flip like a ship, right? All they do is follow the money, and we can exploit that. Exploit that to just make humans human again, because we're not human. We're pretending. We're not. I mean, humans have been around for 300 million years. Humans have been around for 300 million years. And in the past 500 years, we've really seen incredible transformations of the human species. Century by century, Enlightenment, Industrial Revolution, you name it. Right now, we're going into the AI revolution. But I think before that, we should make a world which is true to what humans are and not what corporations are. Because corporations are a different species. Who do we want running these systems? Because if and when AI gets to a point where it can really automate all of our work, who do we want running these systems? The corporations who are far from human. They're soulless. And they have no touch with what it means to exist as a human in this world, as a real human, guided by connection, compassion, and togetherness. Or do we want humans who are authentic and just as they are, who live and exist to be the leaders of these systems? I think the choice is clear. And if you're fed up with these systems, let's do something about it.